This podcast is sponsored by Affinity Recruiting and Consulting. 94% of small businesses and nonprofits disappear before their 10th birthday. The top 6% survive and thrive for two reasons: talent and strategy. Affinity's team of experts provides talent acquisition, outsourced HR, strategic planning, and fundraising support. Long story short, they fix the problems that cause small businesses and nonprofits to fail. If you could use help with recruiting, consulting, or HR, email their founder, Rob Murphy, to start a conversation today. You can also visit them online at affinitytoday.com, and both of those links are in the episode notes. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Rockets. In this episode, I sit down and talk with the owner and founder of a recruiting and a consulting company located right here in Huntsville, Alabama. First off, thank you for taking the time to sit down and talking with me today. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what it is you do?
Absolutely, Clark. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. My name is Rob Murphy, and I believe we'll get into it a little bit later, but my first claim to fame was being Clark's high school basketball coach. And one thing has led to another, and now he's interviewing me on his podcast, which is awesome. And yeah, we are right here in Huntsville. We do have some of our folks who work in other cities in the South, but we do direct hire recruiting, helping our clients find employees. We also provide consulting services for schools, churches, and nonprofits. And we provide outsourced HR services, payroll processing, benefits administration, et cetera, for a wide variety of clients.
Yeah, so obviously, like you mentioned, I first came to know you because you became my basketball coach my senior year of high school. And so they had the school, we were a very small Christian school here in Huntsville. I was at Whitesburg Christian Academy. Senior year, we get ready to start the season, and we're getting a new coach. And the first sort of, the only knowledge we knew about the kind of coach we were getting is this coach played basketball in college, and he's really tall, and we were like, this is going to be the greatest thing that's ever happened to Whitesburg Christian Academy. And at the time, it was just like, we didn't really know what to expect, but you came in senior year, my senior year, to be the basketball coach. And I know you're actually originally from the Nashville area. So what kind of got you into Huntsville and kind of got you to that point of actually my first interaction with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up in Nashville, spent my whole childhood there, went through high school, graduated from Brentwood Academy in 2008, went to the University of Tennessee. That's where I met Lindsay, my wife, and she had grown up in Huntsville. She's been here her whole life, and so that's how we ended up back here.
Okay, so you come here, and I guess your first sort of job in the Huntsville area was that first coaching job at the academy, or did you have other jobs here prior to that?
Yeah, so actually when we moved to town, summer 2016, I was working as a sales rep for a company called The Athletic Shop. Okay. I had previously been an athletic director in Knoxville, Tennessee from graduation for those first 3 years, and worked with a company called The Athletic Shop up there, loved them. And as I was moving down, I asked them about being a sales rep for them and opening up a new territory down here, which we did. And when I was down here, I've actually kept the thread of coaching basketball throughout my entire career. So even before I graduated from college, probably starting in 2010, I had been coaching at least AAU basketball.
Wow.
If not school basketball as well.
Because you graduated from Tennessee in 2013, is that right? Okay.
Yep, that's right. And so I had coached AAU basketball until graduation and as well as after graduation, and then coached at Concord Christian in the high school level while working as the AD there in Knoxville for 3 years. As we came down here, I actually reached out to a guy named Coach Jack Doss, and he was a coaching legend down here. He's won 10 state championships in Alabama.
Wow. I
didn't know him at all. Just shot him an email and asked if I could have breakfast with him and chat with him and learn about his experiences in his career. And, I kind of was the Clark Dunn in that situation, just reach out to somebody and let's talk and see what happens. And he ended up bringing me on as an assistant, and that was in the summer of 2016. And then I actually, shortly thereafter, Lindsay had taken a teaching job at New Hope, and so I decided just for us to be together, I called the New Hope coach and went down there and was working with him and planning on being with him for that season. And then Coach Doss actually, when I'd only been at New Hope for probably a month or two, just from a coaching perspective in the summertime, he called me up one evening and said, hey, Whitesburg Christian Academy, Mark Hodges gave me a call, said he needs a basketball coach. I told him he should talk to you. So that was how that all got going. And then, yes, it was, he hired me like 2 weeks before the season started. Yeah, it was crazy timing.
I think we had because I just finished, cross country season. And so it was just kind of like, we had done some practicing, I think, already for basketball a little bit. And so it was just kind of like, oh, we have a new coach. Like, this is crazy. The games start, in 3 weeks and we have a new coach. And so it was very eye-opening. And honestly, I would say that that first year you were there, it was a very, like, at least as far as the academic program at the school, it was like, you turned it on upside down. In my personal opinion, as far as just like bringing in the outside coaching that is not necessarily used to the academy at the time. And it was very much a different dynamic of like what it would look like and how it would act. Obviously it was a rough season. Probably maybe your roughest of the seasons since you've been there. But prior to that, my junior year was a very, very rough season. Actually, I think it was sophomore. Sophomore year was a very rough season. I wasn't able to play. We lost every game. And so kind of getting to the senior year and we won a few, it was like, wow, this is great. And then I get to end my career as a basketball player. And so I don't think I've shot very many basketballs since. And I'm going to end on a high note. So you're coaching basketball. You're still, I think you were even working for that athletic company some while you were still coaching at the academy in 2017.
Yep.
Kind of take me in the time, because obviously the Affinity Recruiting and Consulting kind of started as a recruiting company first, and then now it's kind of gone into doing more and more things. But that didn't happen. It's been open, I guess, now a little over 2 years. So what did the time look like from 2017 till, I guess 2019, 2020 when you started the recruiting company?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've always been the kid that didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I still am to some extent, although it's been awesome doing this for the last few years. So 2016, I joined as the basketball coach at Whitesburg Christian. I am still selling athletic gear at that time. So during that season, I actually got an offer to work at NASA and did that. Okay. So that was not quite what I had thought it would be once I took that job. And after I'd done that for maybe 6 or 8 months, I actually then had the opportunity to join Whitesburg Christian full-time. Okay. And as you said, at the time, the high school was very, very small.
I graduated with 18 people in 2017.
It was tiny. And it's crazy to see really what's happened since then. And, for anyone who isn't aware, I actually am still coaching the high school basketball team there. So I believe I'm entering my 7th season now. And had the opportunity to go on there full-time, serve as the development director, and I believe my title was actually director of advancement. But my primary role there was to raise money. Okay. And so I did that for about 3 years. Okay. And we had a great time. We were able to raise a lot of money. Jerry Reeder, the headmaster, a lot of it just came through his relationships, but we also worked very hard to build new relationships, start new conversations. We raised money in a variety of ways for a variety of things. The biggest project definitely was building the new elementary school building, which is now up, which is great. And we also, I had my hand in every other type of fundraising as well, from the Booster Club to the Parent Teacher Association to, 4 or 5 other things, golf tournament, 5K race, all that type of stuff. And so, of course, was coaching throughout that time as well.
Yeah, I guess, do you think that, in that role you had at the academy, you were really kind of that cold email, because they have definitely the core people that they knew were good donors, but you're also trying to grow that list and kind of grow those connections. And do you think that was kind of your first, or was it your first sort of, because obviously what you do now is very much similar to just cold calling, cold emailing, cold messaging. Do you think that was your first taste of it, or did you have some experience with that, with the sales you were doing with the athletic company?
Yeah, so, a lot of my career has come down to cold outreach and having those types of conversations. It is very similar to what I was doing, actually selling athletic gear, just reaching out to people cold, being bold, and hearing no a lot, but getting a chance to start new conversations. And actually, even in the role as athletic director in Knoxville, that was similar as well. We were just such a tiny school, even smaller than Whitesburg, actually. Wow. And so, it was, it was a huge effort of let's get people on board, not just financially, but let's get the people in the school, the parents, the families in the school to buy into a vision to actually try to do something with this athletic department, and not just kind of show up and get participation trophies and lose all of our games in every sport, but hey, let's actually try to do something here.
Yeah, build that around it. And so, right. I like cold emailing that. No, most people are not accustomed to it, but it seems like throughout your career, even as you were probably even coaching AAU while you were still in college, that constant kind of conversations with people that, could inevitably be a no, but you just had to put yourself out there. I mean, it's tough for a lot of people to do.
Yeah, absolutely. There certainly is a level of discomfort. Our human nature kind of fights against cold calling, cold outreach, but in almost everything I've done professionally, it's just been a requirement, and it's not something that you really do because you love it. I mean, there's not too many people that just love doing it, but when you're willing to do it and you're able to kind of fight through the rejection and unpleasantness of it, then it does yield results.
Yeah, I mean, so you're working at the academy, you're doing that, and then in 2020 you kind of have this idea, the realization of starting the Affinity recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, you probably had that little bit of an idea of it prior to when you actually officially launched it. So when did the idea, the realization of maybe I could do this myself and start a recruiting company kind of first happen?
Sure. Yeah. So it actually wasn't all that long prior to that. So spring 2020, Lindsay, I believe, was pregnant with our second, or we were about to be pregnant, and we were looking at, she didn't really want to work full time anymore. I didn't want her to have to do that either. I really just wanted and needed to make more money.
Yeah.
And so I looked at some sales jobs, honestly didn't really find any sales jobs that really inspired me too much, but did apply to a couple, interviewed for one. They kept saying they were going to offer it to me, and they didn't. I mean, and COVID's hitting, of course, at this time, so the world is kind of crazy. In addition to, my lack of ability, apparently, to convince that guy that I should have been a sales rep. So I actually had a friend suggest that I look into recruiting. So I interviewed at a couple of places and just learned a lot about it. I had no idea that job recruiting was a thing, didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
And so learned a lot, asked a lot of questions. Neither of them offered me a job. And so I said, all right, well, I got to do something. And I bet that if I found somebody who knows how to do this whole recruiting thing, I could be the salesperson, find us some clients. And that is essentially what we did.
Wow. So, I mean, and I know at the time too, I think you were getting your master's or around that time.
Yeah. I was wrapping up the MBA right around then online as well.
So what did you get your undergraduate degree from in Tennessee, and kind of was that like that sales experience, or did your master's course and your MBA kind of give you that sort of the knowledge and like the business side of the things that kind of helped you for what you do now?
Yeah. So my undergrad degree was in supply chain management and logistics.
Okay.
Completely irrelevant to everything I've ever done. I mean, it was a business degree, and I did have other business classes that were helpful.
Yeah.
The MBA was focused on marketing, and, it was helpful in theory, but it really didn't teach me what I needed to start a business. Sales is something in itself that, there is no real college for sales.
No.
There's places you can go to get sales training, but there's not a bachelor's degree in sales skills, which honestly, in my opinion, is kind of criminal. There should be, because sales, if you were to get a college degree in sales, it would be so much more valuable than 90% of the college degrees that are out there.
Yep.
Frankly, it would be more valuable than an MBA. But although I say that the MBA wasn't really like practically helpful, of course it did help at a conceptual level to understand, what business is about.
Yeah. And I mean, like in some cases, I mean, not necessarily the degree itself probably hasn't necessarily been a one-to-one of, hey, I've got this degree, I got this MBA, and I've gotten this client or this job or this whatever from it in your case, but it's definitely maybe opened the doors to having these conversations with people you would not have had the conversations with.
Sure. Yeah. I had some MBA professors who were super helpful, and who I did learn a lot from. We had some pretty involved group work in those classes as well. So this is actually hilarious. I haven't shared this with too many people. You know who Rob Riggle is in The Hangover? He's the guy that says he's hollering at the kids and they end up tasering Alan. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So he was in my class. He was in my MBA class.
Wow. And
not just in my class, but in like my small group. Like he and I were like in a group of 4. That
like, do you have his number? You could call him right now.
Yeah. And I don't think he's going to get me into the next hangover, but it was just good funny. He actually grew up in Overland Park, Kansas. My MBA is from Kansas University. Okay. I did it online. He did too. But good times.
Small world.
Oh, yeah.
The Huntsville can't
yeah, man.
It's hard to write that up, but it was definitely a dream match for sure.
Yeah, just a couple of Robs.
Yeah,
me and him. Our lives are pretty much the same.
So you have this idea. You're like, I'm not getting opportunities in the sales and recruiting that I've necessarily thought I was going to be able to have. So let me just start this myself. Like, I'm not seeing it. Let's go ahead and do this. What was your, I mean, starting a business in general can be tough. I mean, it's a tough thing to start a business. It's tough to find out, like, what is the right things to do? Do I create an LLC? Do I create an S Corp? Do I create all those logistics behind it? Where did you just find somebody that was able to kind of help you guide you on that path? Or did you just kind of Google and try things on your own?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. We've got a lot of entrepreneurship in our family. My parents have their own business, and it's a Christian counseling center, Rock House Center. They do amazing work, and they're incredibly helpful for people. And then I had actually done some kind of very light duty startup businesses, like, basketball training and stuff like that. So when I had been in Knoxville, and I believe all my AAU teams in Knoxville were on an LLC. So I knew, again, just kind of enough to be dangerous about that. And Lindsay actually became very involved and was a huge part of starting Huntsville Behavior Associates.
Okay.
And so that was great to kind of watch from the sidelines there as well. And yeah, so pretty early on, I reached out to Bradley Hamner, a friend of mine I'd met through school, and he's been my business coach really ever since. But he was helpful with a lot of that. But to me, if you're talking about starting a business, there's all kinds of, paperwork and back office and things that need to go on. But really all that matters is, do you have something that people are going to pay for?
Yeah.
And can you find those people that are going to pay you for it? That's really all that matters.
And so, I mean, obviously, I guess, did you think you are, I guess, knowing you have that and then actually having it are two separate things. And so at the time when you were ready to start the business, did you have kind of those people you like, I think I could reach out to these people and kind of get them and be able to help recruit for them? And did you already kind of have those lined up prior to actually starting the company? Or was it kind of one and the same of, like, the company's starting, I have people, I'm good to go?
Yeah, no. So probably for the business sake, the most valuable aspect of the Whitesburg Christian job for me was that it had really been my job to build relationships amongst the families and the community. And so I did have a lot of connections that I felt pretty good about.
Yeah.
But your network is never as good as you think it is. So one of the kind of conditions I placed on myself was that I wanted to have signed contracts before we got started.
Okay.
So in the direct hire recruiting world, it's pretty much, by and large, done on a contingency basis. So people don't pay us until and unless we deliver for them.
Yeah.
So people aren't having to actually sign a contract committing to pay me X dollars for something I haven't really built yet. But they did sign on the dotted line and say, we'll give you an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so for
me,
me,
it's up to you now just to work as much as you can to find those people and fill those spots.
Right. Yeah. And so that was probably the biggest hurdle was, originally at the beginning, I partnered with an existing recruiting firm to help find people for my clients that I had found. That didn't go well at all. And then we had one or two other recruiters that kind of joined us early on in the beginning who helped with some various roles that we had open. And then not too long after we had been up and rolling, we came across Hunter Daniel, who's our president of recruiting today. And he was just an incredible impact guy from the very beginning. And I think it was at that point when he joined us that we really knew that no matter what type of role that our clients needed, he could fill it. And he had been in a wide variety of recruiting industries himself, and he's just done a great job for us.
So when you first started the company in 2020, was it you and three people? What did the team of Affinity look like in the early days? In those first 6 months, 8 months, a year?
Sure. So at the very beginning, it was really just me and Taylor Baggett, who has now been, really our COO and CFO. But we got introduced by a mutual friend, Joe Sauls, and I talked to Joe a lot throughout the course of thinking through this company. He introduced me to Taylor. Taylor had run and operated the Marketplace Cafe in Hampton Cove for a decade, actually. He had done that and been the primary leader of that. He had partnered with Joe on that, but Taylor had been the primary day-to-day guy there. And when COVID hit, he didn't really want to fight that fight and just shut it down, paid his people some severance, and was looking for his next thing. And so being able to have Taylor with me at the beginning and that level of business knowledge, practical, real-world business knowledge, was extremely valuable.
And so it's just you and Taylor at the beginning. You're starting this company, and you're obviously, I mean, for you, I mean, in the role that you have with the company you have to just those cold emails. I mean, that's really where you're able to. Is that really kind of that first approach that you did when you were like, hey, the business is a thing. This is what's paying me money. I have a family. You have at least one kid. The second one it's almost on the way. You just got to have clients. You got to have people that start paying you. Is that, so was it just nonstop, just reaching out to people, or kind of did you have a process in place that you were like, I think this would be the best way for me to acquire new people?
Yeah. So, I reached out again, and one common thread here is you can never have too much advice from people who have had success before you.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that I held dear, especially in the early days. And so from a sales perspective, I leaned on, and a lot of these things I leaned on, my dad and my parents who had successfully run their own business for 20-ish years now. And my dad also introduced me to a guy named Kevin Johnson who had been in sales for a very long time and actually started his company in Nashville a while back. They've been on the Inc. 5000 list. Wow. There was one year that they were the number 4 fastest growing company in Tennessee. Wow. And so Kevin was very helpful with that as well, just kind of building out. And Kevin actually had been a mentor to me in sales prior to starting the company.
Okay.
And so, the things he advised me to do here were to, first begin just by going through my phone book, call pretty much anybody who I think would pick up the phone and just tell them what I'm doing and ask them if there's anything they'd be willing to do to help, anybody they knew that I should talk to, et cetera.
I think I remember the very first time it's funny you mentioned that, because I think when you first started, I saw a post that you did on Facebook of just basically saying to everybody on Facebook, hey, here's what I'm doing. I'm starting this recruiting company. This is what the recruiting company looks like. And that was a post that you just put out.
Yep.
I'm just kind of like, hey, by the way, I'm here. I'm doing stuff. Here's what I'm doing. If you know anybody, here's where you can find me. And did that have the response you necessarily wanted, or did you still see like you were still having to fight for new people and kind of that back and forth?
Yeah. So posting on social media, was nice to just kind of update everyone on what I was doing. Didn't really gain anything from that from a business perspective. It was really all about just getting on the phone, burning down the phone lines, seeing who would be willing to talk to me. And then once I really had done that and kind of worked through my whole network, then it became an issue of, okay, let's look at who are my prospective clients now in the Huntsville area, especially at the beginning. And then, it's time to pick up the phone again and call them. I think that emails get lost and swept away far too easily. I think that there really is no replacement in sales for the cold call, especially in a startup setting. And oftentimes, too, people's email addresses, might be the wrong address, or they no longer work there, or whatever. Really, the building block of sales, especially in a startup, is the cold call. And you'll find a lot of people who disagree with that for various reasons, but I'll always swear by it. You call the company and you're going to learn some things. If you just call the mainline number, you can figure out, hey, who's the right person to talk to? Do they still work there? What's an accurate email address? What's going on at the company? Most people who pick up the mainline phone number at companies, are generally friendly folks. They're willing to give you, a little bit of their time and answer a few basic questions and help you out. And so, in the sales process, that following up and that, providing value, really starting the conversation, you really have to have that first phone call to just verify what's going on, what's the lay of the land here, and how should I proceed.
Often, I guess you even have to think of like you might see on the outside of like, this is I think how they kind of do things, or this is what's going on. But then when you have that phone call, you're able to be like, oh, hey, well, my assumptions were not correct, or my assumptions were correct, and I can kind of proceed with what I think is what is best, or like how I can provide value for them. Because at the end of the day, like you mentioned, the business is like being able to provide value, and at the end of the day, people are paying you for the value you provide. They're not paying you for just the time that it takes you to do it. At the end of the day, like the person that you find for the job that they have, if that person fits the job and is a great fit for the job, you've provided value and you've checked that box. Right. And you can continue on. You can continue to grow those relationships. And so it's just you and Taylor at the beginning, you start adding on people. What did the team continue to look like? Because I know now the team is much bigger. Is it bigger than what you have imagined it would be at this point, or did you kind of see as the growth of the company started happening? Because I don't know, how many employees do you currently have working for Affinity?
Yeah, so we've got 6 full-time and 5 part-time.
Okay.
And I would say that, the size of the team is probably, roughly what I originally anticipated it would be at this point. What I did not anticipate was just the inconsistencies and the roller coaster nature of the business that we're in. So, it's always an interesting proposition to start a business in an industry that you know nothing about, and in which your business partner, Taylor, also knows nothing about. So we
know business, you don't know how to do the sales and recruiting of business.
Yeah,
or
well,
like work and
we just didn't know recruiting. Yeah. We just didn't know what recruiting was at all. And so thankfully we had, some recruiters join us who were very helpful. And then of course Hunter ended up being the main guy. But one of the things we were not able to forecast and predict is just, in a contingency based world, how inconsistent the revenue is. Wow. We have no recurring monthly revenue. We have no real predictability. Wow. We are a low transaction volume company, and in a great month we do between 8 and 10 deals, fill between 8 and 10 jobs. And those jobs each pay us between, normally somewhere between $8,000 and $25,000 a piece. So now when I say we have averages, we have averages, but some months we do 12 and some months we do 0. And so it's a wild ride, man. And things can fall apart for any reason along the way. We have added some clients that are on more of a monthly retainer, and we have some recurring revenue now. Consulting and HR outsourcing are both more based on the monthly recurring revenue, which is very nice to see those continue to succeed and grow and do well and have a little bit of predictable cash flow. But yeah, man, the direct hire recruiting game, it's a wild world.
The addition of the compliance and doing the HR stuff and doing all these other things that Affinity now is encompassing, was that out of desire and quite like the need that you saw that your current clients were having, or is that kind of out of that desire of like, we need something that's more consistent. We need to be able to provide an all-inclusive package for them potentially, and we also need to have some sort of that retainer company. Because I feel like for most people, even for me, I couldn't imagine not having a retainer and not having that consistent. It's already inconsistently. It's already tough enough to have a business and the consistent pay. If you're a small business owner, the consistent pay is always fluctuates. But then to have no really recurring thing, and you might fill a company for a job in March and then not talk to them again until December.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you can tell me right now what Beyond Rockets is going to do next month with a lot of accuracy. You can tell me what you're going to do in 3 months with a reasonable amount of accuracy. I know that right now October is going great. It's the 25th. And when November 1 hits, we are guaranteed $0 in recruiting in the month of November. And so, we can project some things based on where people are in various parts of the interview process at our clients right now and all that stuff. But things can always fall apart for no reason. We've recently had things that fell apart because, a candidate who was accepted and then eventually offered the job and took the offer backed out at the last minute due to some health issues in the family. And we've had the government delete a job that, we've worked hard on for a while. And, just anything can happen. And so it certainly keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as, why those other branches were added to the company, there was certainly a desire to add some recurring monthly revenue, but also it was really a lot more about just the people who presented themselves. And we had opportunities to bring in people who had extensive skill sets. And it was pretty easy to see from the outset with each of those how they could tie in together with what we already were doing. So, Rustin Pierce, he came in probably a little over a year ago, 15 months, and he called one summer and said, "Hey Rob, we hadn't talked in a while." He actually was the headmaster of the school in Knoxville where I had worked.
Oh wow.
And he since had been recruited to be the headmaster of a larger Christian school in Atlanta where he had been for 5 or 6 years. So he called 15 months ago and said, "Hey, I'm looking for something next. Things are changing where I am, and what's the outlook? Do you do any recruiting in this area?" And I said, "No, but have you thought about being a consultant?" And that was really how that got started. Wow. Rustin brought to the table 20 plus years of leadership in school and church settings and very high level roles and a variety of skill sets, a lot of fundraising, a lot of strategic planning. And that's what he offers to our clients. And so we were able to build in kind of that search and hiring assistance, which was what we knew how to do. But really, by and large, Rustin has landed his own clients in the church and school world, and then has offered them, consulting and capital campaigns and fundraising, strategic planning, all those types of things, as well as search. And similar was when Jason Sowash came on several months back, and he again, had an extremely successful career history in HR, and he had previously started and sold his own staffing company several years back, and he was thinking of starting his own thing, doing HR outsourcing, providing these services for clients. And we were having lunch one day, and I said, "Hey man, please come do that with us instead of doing it by yourself." And so that's what he's done.
Yeah. I mean, and I think all these opportunities, I mean, you have to be there's a lot of that right place, right time, but it's also you've created this network and you've created this infrastructure around what you do, and you're able to kind of get these conversations with people. Because often it's just that there's cold emails, there's cold messaging that gives you the opportunity to have lunch, and you get to learn a little bit about what they do. And you're like, I don't want to be a competitor to you because you're really good at what you do. How about you come help and do that with me? And I think a lot of that is tough for people to do, because they want to look in the mirror and they want to say, I want to do this for myself.
Sure.
I want to make this, I think this is a great business to go into, but I just want to do it. I want to find it myself, and I want to do this myself. And it's all about me, but you're able to say, that's not what I do. I don't do HR. I don't want to do HR. I know what happens, but I want you to do it because you're really good at it. But can you come help our team do it? And here's kind of what we have a vision for.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there really is no replacement in the business world, the professional world in general, for just having a great network. And so networking has always been crucially important to me, and sometimes it comes naturally through the course of what you're doing, for instance, with Rustin and with our first clients at Affinity. Rustin was my boss at Concord a while back, and my first clients at Affinity were people that it was my job to get to know them at Whitesburg Christian.
Yeah.
And Jason, actually, we met each other at a Trash Pandas business networking thing. So, I'm not a real lover of getting out and mingling in situations like that. It's just not really my personality type. But again, it's one of those things, you got to do it. And it can bring a lot of value. And, I was very fortunate that Jason and I met that day. And then, years later, after we had stayed in touch with each other, it worked out for us to work together.
And I know over the course of Affinity, I mean, you worked with a lot of different variations of companies, different sizes, different businesses. But I know a lot of people that listen to the podcast are small business owners themselves. And I think sometimes what's tough for a small business owner is that, they need help with the recruiting, but it's also sometimes tough to find a recruiting company that's able to work with someone that is a smaller size. But I know that's a big part of, you actually prefer to work with smaller organizations and smaller companies. Talk a little bit about kind of what that looks like. So there's people that are listening that, maybe have a fairly big small business, but are looking for recruiting and just didn't know that, hey, maybe there's a recruiting company that can help someone my size.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we certainly love working with small businesses. And I think that a big part of that is just that now at this point, especially, 2.5 years in, we all understand really what it is like to be a small business, the challenges that go along with that. And, especially in today's economy and in the projected economy for the next year or so, times are not the best and look like they're going to get worse before they get better. And so, I think the majority of people have not been in a situation before where, you're looking at that and it's your job to figure out how your company is going to deal with that and weather that storm. And so, just the ability to relate to small business owners in that, I think it goes both ways, right? Because I think that our small business clients prefer working with us over working with, a huge recruiting company, because they're dealing with people, and at this point, all of our recruiting team, and including myself, all of us are acutely aware of the small business life,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, even the folks that weren't maybe a founder of the company, you know, they get it.
Yeah.
You know, they see the fluctuations and the challenges and the, hey, we're all in this together and failure's not an option. So yeah, we love working with small businesses, and I will say too, you know, even if we're not the right fit to help a local small business find the right people, there's always something we can do to try to provide some value. You know, we want to lead with value. We don't want to lead with, you know, a price tag and, you know, coming after your money. You know, and one thing I love to do is to look for those opportunities just to provide value in the hiring space and in areas where we have some expertise, you know. And you and I had a great time at Bradley's gathering last week of all of his business clients, and just the opportunity to share some misconceptions and quick fixes, things you can do to really shore up your hiring and talent acquisition without honestly even paying any money, but just some common mistakes that people make that, you know, hey, if you do this little thing better, it's going to be a big impact to the bottom line of your business.
Yeah, I think that's tough because there's so much noise within the hiring realm too that it's like it's easy just to say, oh well, I think that's a good option because I see a lot of it. When in reality, it's like maybe that's just not the best option for you, and here's why, and here's how the best approach is, and here's a best practice. Because having a best practice, I mean, it does propel and have the momentum to push you in the right direction.
Yep.
But if you can easily be doing the wrong thing at the wrong time and it just doesn't work, you can also do the right thing at the wrong time. And so there's a lot of just figuring out what that is and what that looks like. You mentioned earlier that, you know, you're still trying to figure out what it is that you want to do for the rest of your life. And just like the kind of that, you know, you're, even now when things seem to be going really well, it still is that tough. Like, you know, did you ever see yourself as an entrepreneur? Did you ever see yourself as something that would even do something like this? Or is this kind of something that was just more or less the opportunity was there and you capitalized on it?
Yeah, this definitely the latter.
Okay.
You know, this was an opportunity that was there, and I capitalized on it, you know, thankfully with, you know, faith in the Lord and just some amazing people to lean on and learn from in the process. You know, what I've wanted to be when I grow up has ranged from college basketball coach to, well, I guess, you know, if you take it all the way back, originally I wanted to play in the NBA, but you know, it's weird. The NBA wasn't calling me when I was,
I mean,
when I wrapped up my walk-on career at the University of Tennessee, you know, the Lakers did not have my cell phone number. You just hate to see
their loss.
it.
Their loss.
It was their loss, Clark. I would have been such a great teammate, you know?
I mean, team player.
I mean, honestly, as bad as they are now, I might even be able to make a three-pointer, which they can't do.
Yeah.
So we'll never know what all they lost, you know? So definitely an opportunity that, you know, I was fortunate to be able to capitalize on. And I would say at this point that certainly getting closer to figuring out what I want to do when I grow up. You know, this is, if we can keep this thing going, you know, this is great, you know, because I'm able to make an impact on our clients, make an impact in the community. You know, we give a lot back. I don't know if we've really mentioned that yet, but, you know, we do give away 20% of our profits to people in need, and we're big on giving away our time and talents. And, you know, we really were founded to make an impact.
Yeah. I mean, you even have like a team member that's on that is like, it's their role to be that kind of that. Like you said, like, it's not your personality to be at all these events, but you have someone on your team that, you know, that is their personality of being at all these events. And we can talk a little bit about what that, you know, kind of what that looks like within the team. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that might be listening that, you know, want to do something like that, but actually the structuring of what that looks like might be a little tough.
Sure. So the inspiration for that came from a company called Mission Driven Research here in town. And I believe it might actually have been one of their guys who kind of suggested to me in the first place that I should go interview for recruiting jobs. I'm trying to remember that little piece of history. But basically they're a government contractor, and they have given away a ton of money to international missions. And they have a full-time guy on their staff, Zach Johnson, whose sole purpose in his job is to coordinate with missionaries, figure out their needs, and then support them, not just financially, but in a variety of ways. And so that was very inspirational to me. And when we first started talking about this, it kind of hit me that, okay, well, they're doing the international mission side of that. You know, why don't we focus more on the local community side of that? And so Adrian Hargrove is an incredible guy who actually really has been with us nearly from the beginning. You know, we had no money at the beginning to really pay him to do what he was doing, But, at the beginning he was in for kind of just a percentage of what we could bring in, which is how everybody was. But Adrian's role was really just to plug into the community, find ways that we as a group could make an impact with time, talents, and resources in our community and just help people. And Adrian has been so helpful to our community in so many ways. And at the time, he was operating the Harris Home for Children, in addition to a number of other initiatives that he was involved with around town. And we're very fortunate now that Adrian is a full-time guy with us and continues to be very involved in the community.
Yeah, I mean, like I think it's one of those things. Like you started this. Like I don't think you would have. I mean, moving to Huntsville is one of those things. It's like you're a Tennessee Vols fan in a state full of Alabama and Auburn fans.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a tough dynamic. And then now you have a recruiting company. You really don't know very much about recruiting, and now you're seeing that success, and you're able to get back to this community that you're involved with, and you're able to see the fruits of your labors kind of be able to be seen. And it's a crazy story just to see, and like all that the journey it takes. I mean, business is hard, and it just gets harder.
Mm-hmm.
Any level business is at. Even when you first open the doors to even where you are now, there's new challenges and there's new things that you're trying to face. But a big part of that you've created is sort of this culture around the Affinity's team and these full-time and part-time people that you have on staff. Is a culture that big? Is a culture, the culture aspect of your company is something that you think heavy on, and just kind of like creating that culture that is best for your, like, also your employees and your team members are super important to you. And so, like, is that culture something you think a lot about, and how have you been able to structure that to benefit and help them?
Sure, absolutely. Great question. All your questions are great questions, Clark. But having started the company during COVID, we were born in a remote era, right? And so we still are. I mean, pretty much everyone on our team still works remote, even the folks who are here in town. Hunter, who's our lead recruiter, president of recruiting, lives in Nashville, works remote. And so we had to figure out from an early stage how we were going to do that, right? And so we have some pretty just regular rhythms. Our company all gets together at 11 o'clock on a Zoom call on Mondays and just goes over, hey, start with just, hey, how was your weekend?
Mm-hmm.
And let's catch up and talk for a little bit. And then we talk about the week and where things stand, what we're trying to get done this week. We actually on Wednesday mornings have a prayer time and updates call. So, we, again, faith is central to who we are and what we want to be. And so we share prayer requests with each other and pray on Wednesday mornings, and then also kind of provide more updates on, hey, how's the week going after we're done with that. And then, we'll have, everybody has at least one one-to-one meeting on their calendar throughout the week, whether that's with me or with someone else that they're reporting to or partnering with. And part of the beauty of it too is, just as you mentioned earlier, we're not built around the number of hours that people work. We're built around results.
Mm-hmm.
And so that does parlay itself nicely into the remote aspect, and for me to be able to still coach the basketball team in the midst of all this, it just, again, speaks to, we're about results and not the specific number of hours you put in or rote work or anything like that. And we're very blessed in that. And I think that it's why, as you talk about, what do I want to do when I grow up? This has really become a lifestyle business for me, and I think for the rest of us. I don't have any grand plans of selling it, making a ton of money. I'd like to make a ton of money. That'd be fun. But I don't have any big plans to sell or move towards an exit or anything. It really is hey, we got a great thing going on here. Let's be the best we can be each day and keep it going. Yeah,
and figuring out ways you can help more and more people, mm-hmm. and then not only the people that you have as clients, but the people you're able to give back in the community, and the role that Adrian's kind of position is.
Absolutely.
Looking over this journey you've taken over the last 2+ years, how much of your success would you contribute to being in the right place at the right time, versus how much would you contribute to being just hard work?
Oh, that's a great question, man. I mean, I think, got to give credit to the Lord for just allowing it all to happen. It was definitely something that at the beginning I was very prayerful about. Lindsay and I were very prayerful about, and ultimately decided it was what he did want us to do. I think that really the answer to that question is just, we've been successful because we're trying our best to follow the plans that the Lord has laid out for us. And so he delivers things to the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And things that I didn't see coming. And he also gives us the energy and joy and passion to do our work and to enjoy it, and to, you know, and, you know, we don't love every aspect of work every day, of course, but, you know, going back to him for strength in the midst of challenges. And, you know, it certainly has been a huge experience in the growth of my faith and Lindsay's faith as well. And I can say too, for other folks at our company, you know, just us all seeing the ways that the Lord has provided, you know, that's really where the success has come from.
I think what's interesting, and I do want to mention it, is that your role in what I've been able to do. I mean, you play a key role in what I've been able to do. And like, just because we sat down, I was finishing up college, and we sat down at Beezer's here in town, had lunch, and we were talking through what I was doing. And I was like, I had this other idea of something else, and I was doing this marketing and this podcast thing. And it was just kind of like I've interviewed at a couple jobs, you know, I'm getting married and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I just don't know, like, should I get a job? And then we just let's look at the numbers. Let's look and see what it's doing. And it was like, well, like, really, we've like, I think you asked like, so is everything like covered right now? I was like, oh yeah, we're fine. And he's like, you're looking at getting a job, a typical job, and not doing this? I was like, well, like, you know, just to be safe. He's like, it's like, Clark, don't do that. Like, that'd be a terrible decision if you do that, and you can't do that. I was like, I don't know. And then like I went to talk to my wife, and my wife was like, well, I think it's a good idea too. And I was like, well, that was easy. And and so then it was like, hey, like, I guess now that I'm doing this, and then now you have the space here, and you're giving me the opportunity to kind of be at the space that we have at Lincoln Mill, and actually have an office, and actually have a place to come outside of the work, and just being able to see the business grow over the last, I guess we've been in this space a little over a year now, a year and a half maybe or so. And so I just want to thank you for the role that you've been able to play, because it's been a huge help, and a huge it's been great just having you across the hall. I know just being able to like, hey, I have this idea. Have you had this issue before? And even though we're in completely different business is business.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like issues in business, being a business owner, that you faced, and you're able to like, okay, like, here's how I kind of approach. Oh, okay, I didn't even think about that.
Well, you're very welcome, brother, and it's been my pleasure to be a small part of your story, and really just be an encouragement for you more than anything else. But yeah, man, I remember lunch that day, and you were saying, hey, I was like, hey, so, you know, your little side project that you started during college, it's actually paying your bills. And I was just kind of, you know, I definitely wanted to be that person who said, hey, if this is paying your bare minimum bills right now, why would you not just dive into it and do it, you know? And so it is awesome to look and see what you've accomplished now. And I guess, you know, it feels like so much longer.
Yeah, it seems really so much longer.
But man, just what you've done even in the course of the past year, the success that you've had, the new things you're doing, you know, and just to watch you grow as a young man. And you know, you and I were not a match made in heaven on the basketball court. We had a bad team, but we have been a great pair in adult life. And so, no, man, it's been an absolute blessing to me to watch you grow and the work you've put in and the success that you've had, man. And I know that it's going to do nothing but increase in the years to come. Well,
I really appreciate it. So ending this conversation and kind of hearing this whole story of Affinity Recruiting, and anyone that's listening right now that is interested in some recruiting or any aspect of what Affinity does in the compliance area and the HR area and the recruiting area, where can they find out more information? Where can they reach you? Where can they contact you? And where can they get in touch?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, honestly, if anybody's listened to this point, or for anybody who has, you know, I mean, I can just throw out a cell phone number. I don't really care at this point. You know, I hate trying to, you know, write down somebody's email that they're reading out to me and stuff, but I actually still have the phone number from high school. So area code 615, Nashville, go Vols, 615-400-7582. And happy to hear from anybody who wants to shoot me a text and find a time to talk. 615-400-7582.
And we'll have all the information too for websites and stuff for Rob and his companies in the description of this episode. But I thank you so much for sitting down and talk with me. A little bit longer of an episode than I thought it was going to go, but it was a great conversation, great time. And thank you again for being on here.
Appreciate you very much, Clark.